Good morning. Today is Monday, July 8th, 2024. It's 4:04 a.m. And just before I get into my reading of Psalms and Proverbs, I was reminded of a number that was in my dream last night. I'm pretty sure it was 136:18. That's what comes to mind anyway. That's what I looked up. And the only book of the Bible that I know that has over 100 chapters is Psalms. So I went to Psalm 136, verse 18. And that reads, "And killed mighty kings, for his steadfast love endures forever." And verse 17, "To him who struck down great kings, for his steadfast love endures forever, and killed mighty kings." Verse 18, "For his steadfast love endures forever. Sihon, king of the Amorites, for his steadfast love endures forever, and Og, king of Bashan, for his steadfast love endures forever. And gave their land as a heritage, for his steadfast love endures forever, a heritage to Israel his servant, for his steadfast love endures forever." And so the thing that struck me, and what I'm wanted to capture here this morning, is simply the phrase, "and killed mighty kings, for his steadfast love endures forever." So this is attributing murder, basically. He killed the kings, who struck down great kings, and killed mighty kings, and two specifically. And I think these are the two that verse 17 and 18 are talking about, and killed mighty kings. Who were the mighty kings? Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan. And so the thing that I'm thinking about is I'd love to really find the history of those battles. I want to know how those kings met their demise. Was there some kind of supernatural event that brought about their death? Was it a battle between the children of Israel and these two kings and their kingdoms? I think that's a really interesting distinction, because in both cases we could say God, his steadfast love endures forever. Whenever the children of Israel would win in a battle, that was, God was with them. And I think the line is blurred between what the warriors did and what God did, because it's not hard to see how we can ascribe God's intention and his hand through our actions when we're doing something that in hindsight is pleasing to God. So you could say God did that, but actually we did that. And I think that's an important distinction. I think that's really something to consider heavily, because I think that's what we're facing in the last days. We're waiting for God to do something, depending on your understanding of election and total depravity and in these aspects of Calvinism that permeate the culture and the mindset of today's Christians, who attribute all of the activity between man and God to God by virtue of sovereign authority. Yet we see and we read in the history of the Bible the accounts of David and his men and their feats of valor on the battlefield. David literally in conflict with Goliath, and how that took place. That was David who killed Goliath. It wasn't God who killed Goliath. It was David who killed Goliath. And I think that's probably the more accurate rendition of these conquests, because that places the activity and the action in the right place, in the hands of man, overcoming evil with good. And I think that's the implied reference here, that these kings were struck down for a reason. They weren't just indiscriminate, wonderful, lovely little kingdoms that the children of Israel came and ransacked and took over by the blessing and, inspiration of God. That doesn't make any sense. No, there's a bigger picture plan and idea behind these things, because that's the thematic approach and the thematic fulfillment and unfolding of the plan of God through the people of God. And that plan is still unfolding today. And there is still conquest that needs to happen today. The difference is the giants aren't dead yet. They killed them physically, but now they're spiritually here. And so I think this is the second level. This, I think, also is tremendously thematic. It's tremendously appropriate when you consider the nature of what took place in the garden, the good and the evil, the spiritual influence, the deception that took place, and then outside of the garden, the ability of the enemy to inflict not only physical, intervention, negative intervention, pain like we see with Job, but most destructively the spiritual influence. And that spiritual influence is the stronghold on humanity. And once that stronghold breaks, that's the gates of hell right there. We break that stronghold, we break the gates of hell. And then we prepare for the return of the Lord by doing the work that's in front of us. I think that's how this goes. I think that's the real. It's the marriage of all of the other disciplines. You can take science, history, religion, philosophy. You pull all these things together, it comes to this vortex of a plan of what this could look like. It's prophetic. It's practical. It's desirable from an intrinsically simple standpoint of human discovery and human life and human vitality. The love of God that is preached and exercised through the New Testament Christians, that type of practical, necessary love is the plan of God. And it's not until that this message is preached and practiced in all nations. See, it's not just preached, but it's practiced. That's the act of making disciples who follow the commands of Jesus. That's the beautiful thing. Because he had one command, and that was to love each other. And to do that, we have to love God. We can't love each other until we really learn how to love God. That sets the whole thing up. So, there we are. We're back to God killing these mighty kings. I think that also is a anecdotal reference to the fact that God's not afraid to interact with our history. That this is the aspect of our free will. Paul had a free will, but Paul was also knocked off the horse and made blind. So he was given a strong suggestion as to what his course would be. Now, Paul was surprised but then followed, because his mind knew, okay, this was God. Yes, I'm going to do this. Paul agreed with his experience, with what he found. He didn't have to. And you know what? I'm wondering if there have been other potential Pauls who maybe have had similar experiences, who said, no, I'm not going to do that, and went their way. I'm sure that's the case, because these are individual choices that we make. So, let's choose wisely. Let's choose for the glory of God. Let's choose to serve God. And when we see and sense and experience His touch, His direction, His strong suggestion in our life, let's yield to that and see, what does that mean, and then walk and pursue understanding, seek for wisdom, and be overwhelmed by the fruit of the Spirit in your own being. Be a fruitful creature. Become a loving representative of Jesus Christ in this world. That's the power of God. And the mighty kings that need to come down are these princes and powers of the air. Now, we're not going to go against them. You see, God killed those, he says. God struck them down. And maybe that's the other side of this metaphor. No, or this metaphor, this account that we read here in the book of Psalms, that to him who struck down great kings, for his steadfast love endures forever. We're talking about God. So these principalities are subject to God, and they will be struck down by God in due time. I think that's what we read in Psalm 82. That's literally what the prophecy is in Psalm 82, that they will be destroyed and they will die like men. So, I think that's going to be it for this little discussion. I thought that was, I think I've exhausted that for now. Thank you and have a great day. Bye now.